It's a real pleasure for me now to introduce another man who is a Georgia legend, who needs no introduction. I could just say his first name, and everybody would know who I'm talking about. And how many people have you known in your life that you could just say their first name and 600 people would know exactly who you're talking about? Herman Talmadge. He was first elected to the governor's office in contradiction to Bo Calloway not being given the governor's office because he was elected by the people. Bo Calloway was not given the office by the legislature. Herman Talmadge's political career in the governor's office began by being elected by the Georgia legislature. We have so much history in this room here tonight. His father had died, had been elected governor, had died before he was sworn in. Herman Talmadge was elected by the legislature. He served 67 days, I believe. Then he resigned because the Georgia Supreme Court said that he could not continue in that position. He was then elected by the voters in 1948 to fulfill his father's unexpired term. Then he was reelected in 1950 to a full term as governor of the state of Georgia. He then was elected to the United States Senate in November of 1956, and he served until January of 1981. Senator Talmadge and his wife Linda, who is also with us tonight, they live on Lake Talmadge in Hampton. I guess it would be fair to say that more than any other Georgian who is living or any other Georgian that you can remember in history, more Georgians across the complete age spectrum know this man by name and by sight than anybody else that has lived or held office or been in any other profession in the state of Georgia. My grandparents swore by Herman Talmadge. My great-grandparents, I was told, did too. My parents always actively supported Herman Talmadge. My children, who are 9 and 13, can tell you as much about Herman Talmadge as I can. And I have always admired this man. I think the world of him, and I'm honored to have had the opportunity while I was working in state government to work with Senator Herman Talmadge and his staff, and I could talk for hours about the things that he and his staff did to try to help the governor be a better governor and serve the state of Georgia, and he never asked for credit for it. It is my personal pleasure to introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, someone who there will never be another one like him, former governor, former United States Senator, Herman Talmadge.
Chairman Perdue, Lieutenant Governor Howard, and other distinguished guests. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom, thank you very much for that warm and generous introduction. Several years ago, due to advancing years, physical and mental deformities, I quit making public appearances. But when I was invited to help honor Griffin Bell this afternoon, I could not decline this evening. I could not decline your invitation. I have enjoyed very much last few years serving as an elder statesman. You know what an elder statesman is. That's an unemployed politician. They're entitled to give gratuitous advice which no one ever accepts. I have also had plenty of time to read, hunt, fish, and draw my 2 welfare checks. It's called Senate retirement and Social Security. But in fact, both of them are welfare because neither is funded, and practically all of it comes from taxpayers' money. Like many things, both good and bad, originate in California. This new type of politics originated in California. I read a book written by one of them about 25 years ago. He had a fellow named Mulligan that came to see him running for either the city commission or the county commission of Los Angeles. I've forgotten which. In any event, there were several million votes involved. This man sized up Mulligan right off the bat as a complete fool. But he was either greedy or needed money or both. So he took Mulligan's case. He sent Mulligan out of town. For the duration of the campaign, Mulligan never made a speech, never held a press conference, never shook a hand, never had a press interview. For all practical purposes, he might as well have been dead. The theme of the campaign was 3 cheers for Mulligan. Mulligan not only got elected, but he topped the ticket. Oh, that's the difference between what it is now and what you and I ran for public office. You'd have to meet on the courthouse square, look people in the eye, fight off hecklers. They could judge whether you were an imbecile or whether or not you had any sense. But today, anyone that can raise the money and can read a 20-second slogan on an idiot board and doesn't look like he's a fugitive from an insane asylum can become a very formidable candidate. We learned during the New Deal days, more than 50 years ago, that it was possible to buy votes with tax money. All congressmen since that time have seemed to practice that sort of statesmanship. We have now had more than 25 years without a balanced budget. They keep adding new programs, all Congresses except the recent one, that put more people to receiving federal checks. It's gotten to the point now where about 50% of the American people receive some sort of check from the federal government. The other 50% pay the taxes. First thing I learned on a farm was if you overload the wagon, you'll break it down. We've just about overloaded it now. I used to be opposed to term limits because I knew that experience was the best possible teacher. It takes a freshman congressman and a freshman senator about 1 term to learn their way to the bathroom. But the big trouble is they learn their job too well. They find out that if they can use public money to buy votes, it'll get them reelected to public office. And the reason we have had over 25 years of unbalanced budgets is because congressmen and senators have number one objective is to get reelected. And they can't afford to offend voters. I sometimes think if someone during recent years had offered an amendment to pay pensions to knock-needed people, it probably would have passed, because no one wanted to offend a knock-need vote. The reason I'm for term limits is because if someone cannot seek re-election, he's bound to vote for the country's welfare occasionally instead of his own welfare. Now, I first knew Griffin Bell almost 50 years ago. We've been friends since that time. I heard a story they tell around King and Spalding about the time they invited Griffin to come in and interview for a relationship with King Spalding. And Griffin wanted to know what the office rent was. He wanted to see the books and did see the books. So I don't know who was interviewing who under that circumstance. Looks like Griffin Bell was interviewing King Spalding instead of the other way around. Now, Griffin was an honor graduate of Mercer University. He serves as chairman of the Board of Trustees there today. He's been an outstanding member of King Spalding, one of the most prestigious law firms for more than 25 years. He served on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals with great distinction for some 15 years. And one of his accomplishments when he was on the Court of Appeals was to let lawyers talk less. He put through a rule that if there was no need for an oral argument, they wouldn't have them. All the other Court of Appeals in the United States have adopted a similar rule. He's the only man I ever know that could slow down lawyers from talking. One of the greatest things that Griffin ever did was to persuade Ernie Vandiver to set up the Sibley Commission. You know, in those days, the most controversial issue in Georgia was desegregation. We'd had segregation ever since the country was founded, had it embedded in our law and in our Constitution. Supreme Court suddenly changed it, and the people of the South were furious about the Supreme Court changing something that had been in existence for that long. The legislature passed a law that if schools were desegregated, they'd be abolished. We'd go to a private school system. The Sibley Commission held hearings in every congressional district. For the first time, people realized the gravity of the situation. And that Sibley Commission hearings, which Griffin Bell authored, probably saved the public school system in our state. He served as Attorney General during the Carter years, and probably the most nonpartisan Attorney General of my lifetime. He called the shots as he saw them, regardless of partisan politics. Griffin has always assumed civic responsibility on the local, state, and federal level. To sum it all up, Griffin has courage, which we don't have in the Congress. He has brains, which is a scarce commodity. He has character, He has judgment, and he has industry. He's a hard worker. He's made a great public servant, great judge, a great lawyer, and I congratulate you on giving him this significant honor this evening.